everyone, and welcome to a special episode of the Veterinary Roundtable, the podcast where we answer your veterinary-related questions while having some fun along the way. If you enjoyed today's episode or a previous episode, be sure to leave us a review on your podcast provider of choice. And if you have any feedback to offer to improve the Veterinary Roundtable, let us know. I'm Dr. Emily King.
I'm Courtney Allen.
I'm Devin Fortune.
I'm Dr. Ashlyn Duckwall. Today we have a special episode, so we have a guest. It's Dr. Danielle Conway. She's a nutrition board eligible veterinarian with extensive experience in integrative medicine and nutrition. Her pursuit of helping patients live their best lives has led to training and working alongside leading professionals countrywide. She has certifications in advanced coursework in veterinary acupuncture, spinal manipulation, rehabilitation, and nutraceutical support. Her approach to combining traditional medicine with evidence-based, individualized integrative modalities to achieve optimal wellness has spanned clinical specialty practice, non-for-profit, academia, corporate, and industry.
Welcome
Dr. Conway.
Hello.
Thanks for being on
having
here.
me.
Yes, we're very excited to have you because we're ready to pick your brain.
Yes, we're so excited. I feel like nutrition is probably the main thing that we get asked all the time in practice. For me personally, I
It's
don't
a
know.
big topic.
It's a big part.
It's huge.
I mean, I feel like every day in the exam room, there's always something as it pertains to nutrition.
Mhm.
Yeah.
It's very
And
important.
it's a loaded
aspect.
topic, right?
Mhm.
Yes. Yes,
Yeah,
it
no
is.
kidding. Yeah. So I think we should probably start where kind of our introduction to Dr. Conway started, where we had that discussion of grain-free diets and just the tests and all that, and kind of at least where our stance was of avoiding them. But we want to learn. We want to know what your thoughts are, like being in the field. Is that something that you still advise against? Do you work around it? We'll
You're
just dive right into
starting
grain-free.
out with like, boom, grain-free. Like,
Oh,
Bibbidi
yeah.
bam.
Okay. It's a hot topic. We go round and round about it a lot. So
Yeah.
give us your input. What do you think?
Oh, yeah. And this is one of those topics where, I mean, if you ask 6 different nutritionists, you get 6 different answers. And I'm more in the moderate range of, I think, where some of my other colleagues may fall, in that saying avoid grain-free for right now is absolutely not incorrect. I mean, if we're going to be conservative and just make sure we don't know what's going on yet, certainly not a wrong thing to do. What I'm seeing on my end as a nutritionist and having patients come in and see me is that they're going, I need another option. Like I've been told to avoid grain-free, and then they end up going to their breeder or chat site or something, and their breeder gives them input and telling them, oh, it's all a hoax, it's non-existent, it's made up by big pet food companies, which the recent lawsuit that just came out didn't help with that whole misinformation station there. And so they're really wanting and still wanting to do grain-free. And then they end up doing some ridiculous thing that, somebody that they shouldn't be listening to is telling them to do. And so I'll come up with a little bit more of the middle range approach of, we can do grain-free. However, it's got to be by a really reputable company that's doing quality control and testing and not using crazy exotic ingredients. And if they do choose to use something that is novel to the pet food world, that they're doing the appropriate digestibility and ideally bioavailable studies so that we know what's on the paper, on that formulation paper, if there is one, hopefully, is actually what ends up not only in the bowl that the pet's eating, but then into the pet's body. Because that's where something's going off here. So you've got these companies saying on the paper here, on my screen or on my formulation software, it looks balanced to AFCO, but then something's happening. Something's absolutely happening. I've had patients die from nutrition-related DCM. It's usually from companies that are not doing the level of testing and quality control that there is. There's certainly outliers in there, but the majority of cases I say are. And I've had colleagues that will say, oh, it's completely a industry problem. And that if more pet food companies, especially smaller ones, newer ones, whose generosity of assumptions and are trying to do the right thing, nobody's in it to hurt any animals. Nobody starts any sort of animal care company to hurt an animal.
Right.
But just that they're not consulting with food science professionals and veterinary nutritionists to tell them, hey, we got to make sure there's things you're doing and make sure what's going into the bowl is the same as what you're formulating for. And even one step further, what's actually getting into the animal and what they're able to absorb and utilize. So it is certainly a loaded and complex topic. And then once you're using high fiber ingredients, like a lot of the grain-free diets out there are high in fiber, very high in fiber. And a lot of their formulators, I don't think, are accounting for that. There's special formulation you have to do and looking at your ingredients to make sure that, you're getting the right nutrients to where they should be within the animal.
Is there a way like for the general practitioner, is all that information available like on the bag, for example, or does it require a little bit more kind of back knowledge, calculating, consulting with a nutritionist, things like that?
Yeah, that's a wonderful question. It is not on the bag, unfortunately. You have to call the companies and ask them those questions.
Wow.
And my kind of workaround, because who has time for that in practice when you're busy? You don't have time to be calling every single pet food company. Is you can either A, put it back on the pet owner and have them call and ask, or just stick to the companies that you know and trust. So if you got some companies that you know and trust, and I call that my circle of trust, and recommend that all practitioners and all hospitals have a variety of different food brands that fit into different categories that an owner could be looking for that they feel comfortable recommending, and then just having those in your back pocket to say, hey, you really think your pet needs a grain-free diet? I recommend getting it from Hills or Rain or it depends on if they're okay with conventional company, Hills Purina Canine, or if they're wanting, I hate the word natural, so I call it ingredient centric. So if they're looking for more of an ingredient centric approach or a more fresh food approach, you have companies in those categories that you can reach for and present them with as an option rather than just saying don't. Or I've heard some colleagues will recommend just sticking to the big three. That's certainly, again, not a wrong way to go, but you just have so many of those clients who are just, doesn't matter how much data and logic and facts and science you spit at them, they're just not going to do it. So I have some other options, some of my my beta list that we can reach for.
Yeah, because that's what I see is that like we'll be in an exam room and somebody will be like, yeah, no, Hills, they create food that kills dogs. And you're like, I really don't think that's a great business plan. Like, I don't think they're like really like if you like logically think about it, they want the dog to live as long as possible. So you buy as much food as possible.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't make any sense to like be killing dogs prematurely with food.
Yeah.
So, okay, I got a question for you. There's so many questions I have. Okay,
I know. That's why I was jumped right into it all the time.
Okay,
this is great.
All right. So are you comfortable doing thumbs up and thumbs down? If we say a company, can you give us a thumbs up or a thumbs down? Ooh. Or is this like
are we jumping off of grain free?
No, well, we're talking about grain free.
Okay.
Like, it's like one of the things she's talking about is like, okay, have an arsenal.
That's what I was going to ask her. Like, what brands do? Okay, yeah.
Yeah, I may have to be a little careful because there was actually a brand there that starts with a Z that was suing veterinarians. So,
so we got to be careful.
Okay, no Z's.
That was if you came out and they actually reached out to the corporate that I worked for at the time because I had written a blog post on. I'm happy to send you it too. It's about I keep it updated. It's all about grain free. I don't list company names on there, but kind of talks about correlation and causation, what we know and what we don't know, and kind of my general recommendations with the caveat of do whatever still makes you comfortable. It's either the pet guardian or the practitioner. Happy to send that. So we can try. There might be some companies where I might be like, I cannot answer that.
Her thumb is going to be neutral. Okay, so you put your thumb neutral.
That blog would be amazing, though. We definitely, please send us that. That'd be fantastic.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. Okay, do you guys have some companies you want to ask her about?
Is this strictly for grain free or just in general?
Let's do grain free.
Because I was I wanted to know her recommendation. Like if an owner is very adamant about using grain free, then I would like to, I would like to know. Yeah. Oh, I would like to know what grain.
No, see, I don't say no because I say like.
Wait, say no to what?
Like if it's grain free, I don't just say no.
Like that's what I'm asking.
I advise, like I'll say, okay, well maybe we can use grain free, or if you're insistent, like I agree because you have a lot of people that are like, no,
right?
Like you don't know what you're talking about per se. Like grain free is the only way my dog can exist.
Yeah.
Okay, maybe I don't know. So if you're going to feed grain free, regardless of what I say, how can I help you make the best choice possible?
Okay, I got where I'm at. I thought we were talking about like just general brands, and we're just gonna
no, but we'll do that next.
Okay, I want to know.
Okay, so do you want to shoot one out for grain free?
I just had general ones. Blue Buffalo.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
I love their veterinary line.
I know.
No
specific.
Wait, I'm gonna get.
Yeah, I really like their veterinary line. Their other line, okay. Anything in the blue bag. I don't love the ones that have the wolf or the bobcat on the front of the bag, just out of
wilderness
principle.
Okay. Yep. Yeah. Fair enough.
Dogs aren't wolves.
True. Preach. Come on. Don't you know they are 1,000 years ago?
There's 99.9% genetic similarity.
Right. Didn't we do that on the podcast that one time where we talked about who were we talking about with where we talked about the spread from a dog to a wolf or a cat to a whatever, and like the amount of mutations that have occurred. Where were we talking
I
about
don't think
I don't.
We
talked
there.
about that.
And
on
it was
a
like some ginormous fold difference between between a dog and a wolf versus a cat. Like the difference is like not nearly as
like they're a lot more closely related.
Or whatever. Yeah.
I actually did an article. I wrote an article on that. Time Magazine reached out to when I was at NC State during my nutrition internship and asked us to write an article on that for them. And so I was the low man on totem pole, so I got nominated to do it. And so I had to spend like a week researching it and typed it all out, wrote it all out, and then it was they didn't like what I said, so they never ran it.
Oh man,
they put the kibosh on it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's
what other ones do you have?
Nutro.
Nutro's pretty good. Yep.
Okay.
Thumbs up.
Redford.
Is Redford make grain free?
Oh, we got a wiggle.
We got a middle.
There's a wiggle.
Oh, we got a wiggle.
When I worked at Pest Supplies Plus, we had to it's a Pest Supplies Plus brand, and so we had to push it and push it and push it, and so I was just curious.
Okay, good. Yeah, well, that's a good question.
Yeah, that's a red flag for me. Like anytime,
right? Yeah.
A brand is being really pushed hard by a company or something. It's like, what? Why?
We got when we first started carrying it, we got gift cards for whoever sold the most that month.
Oh, weird. Okay, yeah.
Kirkland.
Yeah.
Ooh.
What did you say?
Kirkland.
Do they have grain free too?
Yeah, I haven't looked into them recently.
Okay.
They were pretty good. But then there was a lot of patients that had diet-related DCM on that diet. Now, I haven't done enough research into them since then to know if it was what else was going on, because it's so hard to confirm, right? Like sometimes you just don't get a confirmed nutritional DCM diagnosis, and when it's in a breed that's already genetically predisposed to getting DCM, it's so hard to know. Is it? And also a big thing that we were seeing in clinical practice, at least, is that a lot of people don't follow the feeding instructions on the back of the bag. So especially with an animal that they're trying to do the right thing and their animal's obese prone, right? So they're underfeeding them to what the bag says. And I would say 98% of the time the bag says to overfeed the animal. And I'm usually recommending feeding less than what's on the bag. Right. But then those are the cases that we would see issues with, whether it was nutritional related DCM or something else. And it's because they're not feeding the diet as it was formulated to be fed. So they are actually underfeeding the nutrients. And there's been studies to show with weight loss that the whole old adage of just feeding 25% less of whatever diet they're on could result in nutritional deficiencies because it will underfeed the vitamins and minerals and micronutrients. So then again, also like, is it the company? Is it the food? Or is it because it's not being used appropriately? We wouldn't, if a patient was having an adverse effect on a drug, and wasn't administering the drug appropriately, we wouldn't blame the drug. We would say, oh, well, you doubled the dose and you weren't supposed to, or you missed a dose or something like, we wouldn't necessarily blame the drug. It would be the user error. And so I think some of this that we're seeing with diet is potentially user error.
Wow. That's fascinating.
That is mind blowing.
So I guess I always thought too that the bag was an over recommendation because of the generalized, like you got your Great Dane, your Chihuahua, your Lab. So I guess in that topic, is it also brand dependent on whether or not you okay.
Yes, and how much testing they do on what animals and what's their curve and what's their model dog and how did they set their recommendations. And, some of them, like when you usually formulate with a buffer. And so sometimes on the bag, you put the recommendation of the feeding amounts with a buffer as well. So if you have a buffer on a buffer, you're probably good. But it just depends. It's such
fascinating.
Yeah.
So if you were looking at a bag of food as an owner and it says it's grain free, what ingredients should you look for to say that's not a grain free option I should pick? So like, what would you like to see not in the bag? You know what I mean? Like, so if it said it's all legumes or it's, like, is there anything that like, if you saw it on the ingredient list, you should be like, pass?
Not necessarily the ingredient list. And this is why it's so hard. There's really not much an owner can do when they flip over the back of a bag when they're in the pet food store to tell them any real information about the quality of that food or that diet. They really have to call the company and ask questions of, the WASAVA questions, or I have a whole list of questions. I'm happy to send them over. I've added to the WASAVA ones to really help gauge. And this is where I get my pet guardians involved. And I don't have me or my staff doing that. I don't have staff right now. It's just me, right? Even when I was in I'm all the staff.
I am the staff.
Somebody's going to crawl out from under that desk. I know it, right?
And my dog. I have my dog call. Where I now have the pet guardians. They call. And then I also have them call companies that I know and trust and will give them good answers. I let them compare themselves. And I'd say 9 times out of 10, they often answer the wrong question and say, oh, never mind. I don't want to feed this anymore, because they see the difference in the answers from the companies that I feel like are doing a good job with quality control and making really great, safe food, and then companies that are not for whatever reason.
Yeah.
Okay. And so it's hard ingredient wise. I don't like to see a lot of legumes. But there's also so many shady things that a company can do, because companies have really gotten smart and that they know what the consumer wants to see on that ingredient label and on that bag. So they can do things, move things around, dehydrate them before they weigh them, not dehydrate them before they weigh them.
Yeah. Is that like, I was always taught that like the order of the ingredient list has to do with weight or something like that of the ingredient in the bag. Yeah. And so... I mean, at least that's what I remember anyway. And so that's why some things will be listed first, because they weigh more than, and like to your point of clients wanting to see certain things listed first.
So a lot of companies will remove, like the big 3 usually remove the water first. Like they dehydrate everything down and they weigh everything right before it goes into the extruder. So it's very consistent. It's very, transparent. Other companies will weigh them off when they come off the truck before it gets dried down. And hey, guess what weighs more? Does chicken, fresh chicken with lots of water weigh more than other ingredients? Yeah, you bet it does. And so that's why even, seeing chicken or, meat 1, 2, 3, order on the ingredient label, you can have a diet that has, the protein showing up second or third that has a higher actual total protein content than one that has an ingredient of meat first.
Yeah, because like people will freak out when they see corn first. Why has corn gotten such a bad rap?
Yes.
I don't know the answer to that question. I think it was really good marketing and also just fear-based fear mongering can really be an effective tool. No matter whose hands it falls into. And I think that was one of the ones where people really got afraid.
Do you think that food companies capitalize on anamorphizing, like people putting human things on people, right?
Anthropomorphization. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Oh gosh, it's everywhere, especially in the fresh food movement now. Oh, that boils my blood.
Yeah.
The combination of fear mongering and then the appeal to the love of the animal and the, the anthropomorphizing. It is a really effective, deadly combination.
Yeah. Well, kind of on that note with the fresh foods and stuff like that, I do have a lot of people where they're just going against feeding kibble, right? And so then, but let's say their pet has special needs. Well, I say, you can do a home cooked diet, but you have to talk to a nutritionist. Like you just have to get it well balanced. I guess I know looking at your information stuff, it kind of is what's best for the owner, right? And their livelihood and everything like that. How would you recommend they go about feeding the fresh category? Are there those companies that are out there reliable and balanced? Again, it's probably company dependent versus, when they make their home cooked diets, is there essential things that you educate owners on? Anything, I guess, in that category?
Yeah, I think this is a category that, I say we as pet food companies and just veterinary medicine in general need to expand upon. And I would love to see this more accessible to pet owners, more accessible, and looking for ways to potentially make it even a little bit more affordable than it is. For your healthy dog and cat, there's, lots of options out there. And I always first ask someone when they are interested in feeding fresh is first, why, get to the reason why behind it will be very telling. Sometimes they don't actually even want to be doing it. They're just afraid and they're fearmongered and given misinformation. And then you give them accurate information and they decide they don't want to do that anymore. Or if they're really passionate about it and they feel strongly about it, or it's, part of their lifestyle, the way that they eat, and they want to do that for their animal, or they're a chef and they want to cook, and that's awesome, is to find out if they want to cook themselves or if they'd prefer the convenience of having it show up at their home, or if they want to get it at a store. It's finding out, how they want to go about feeding the fresh food would be the kind of this follow-up question to that. And then based upon those 2 answers, would make recommendations from there. So either guiding them towards a company that is, commercial fresh, that's doing it really well, or making a diet themselves at home. And that's where I would like to see more options. And that's where, I'm going to be teaching veterinary hospitals how to guide people on how to make balanced diets at home for healthy dogs and cats. And the sick dogs and cats, I think a nutritionist needs to be involved in those cases.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
But I don't believe in gatekeeping either. And I think it should be more accessible to owners who really want to do that at home.
Yeah.
I have a question if you're allowed to speak on it. What is your opinion about farmer's dog?
That's a wonderful question. I actually have known of farmer's dog for a while. I worked in Manhattan for a while, which is where they started. I think they have a really great business acumen. And they have now brought in professionals who are very well respected in the industry. Ryan Yamka is well respected. He knows what he's doing. He's a good formulator. They've added a nutritionist to the lineup, which I think it's always a good thing when companies, pull in a veterinary nutritionist. I think they really should when they do therapeutic diets. So, and I don't know if they're going to, they said they were not planning on going into the therapeutic realm, but pulling in a nutritionist makes me think that they have. Something that I'm always on the lookout for with pet food companies, especially that start with a very business venture background, is how are they doing it? How are they formulating? Are they really truly in it to make an amazing product, or are they in it to make, a really affordable product and make a high profit off of it?
Yep.
And so is it performative or is it authentic? And I guess at the end of the day, nobody knows the answer to that question, right? Only the individuals doing it. But that's always and now that fresh is a hot topic. And so, when you spend millions and billions of dollars on a Super Bowl ad before you hire the nutritionist, to me, it's a little bit putting the cart before the horse.
Yeah, it's
there wouldn't be the first pet food company to do that. So,
right. Sure. Okay. I feel like it's taken over the world. So I was just,
it really has.
They're at all the
very good at their marketing.
Yeah.
Is it
their marketing team is phenomenal?
Yes, they hired a very good marketing team. Is it the number one fresh food I would recommend or feed my own dog? No, but is it one that I would tell people to stay away from? Also, no.
Okay. What store-bought fresh foods would you recommend for pets?
Yeah, I really, really love Breed Science. It's a small company, and when we talk about a company who is just, I think, done it well, they are it. You haven't seen them anywhere. Nobody's heard of them because they're tiny, but they put all their money into making a really incredible product. And they are actually really subspecialized in making weight loss products. So they have the only fresh weight loss diet on the market that also comes with client support. So if you have a patient or a client who wants to do fresh and the pet needs to lose weight, they will help support them, and they have their little check-ins with them and you, and they help guide the client to make sure they're losing weight at an appropriate rate. And they have calculators that can work right into certain PIMs, and that also they have a revenue share model with the veterinary practices, which is something I'm passionate about. I really don't like these fresh food companies that kind of take the client away from the veterinary practice. I like to see the veterinary practice being involved, or at least as involved as they want to be and have the capacity to be. And so Breed Science lets the practice and the veterinarian stay involved in that. They do sous vide cooking. They have nice high protein content. The fat levels are low. The fiber content is high. That's something I see in a lot of companies. They'll raise the fat levels a lot because fat is a relatively affordable source of calories. And this company doesn't do that. I've also been very impressed with Winwood homemade diets, and then also Smalls. And there's a local company by me. Their name is Paul's, and they do a really wonderful job. And I also do a bit of work with them where if a client doesn't want to cook themselves, they will cook the diet that I make and ship it to the client.
Oh, that's awesome.
Oh, that's
cool.
cool.
That's really cool.
These are all small companies I've never.
So Smalls, was that the name of one?
Paul,
They have for cats. Yes.
You're killing me, Smalls. It just made me think of Sandlot. Okay.
So
Smalls, Paul's.
Breed Science.
And then
Wood.
Let me see.
Winwood.
Those are all great.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
WYNWOOD. And isn't this like the cutest? It's like a little start guide that the client gets. And then they have this for veterinarians, and they have like,
that's awesome.
I mean, this is just like makes a nutritionist pee their pants with happiness, because it's got every single nutrient of concern on the first page. You can tell, like, they didn't have to tell me that they worked with a veterinary nutritionist. I knew from when I got that. And then when I looked at their formulations, I also knew who formulated them, because you can tell, like, we all have our own little like thumbprint of how we formulate. Yeah. So I knew.
And so Smalls is for cats.
Yes, only cats only. It's great. I think it's the only options out there that's fresh cooked for cats.
For sure. For cats.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
Wow, I'm so jazzed.
I know. Yeah.
I get so scared of nutrition when the owners talk to me about it, because I feel like truly in vet school you didn't get a whole.
No, you learned how to read a label, maybe.
I don't remember that.
Yeah, that's about it.
Wow.
And you learn therapeutic diets, like why you would use a therapeutic diet for a disease process.
Yeah.
But in terms of general maintenance or just healthy pet, like nutrition.
Yeah, I really would like to see vet schools really step it up. And I actually think that every vet school needs to have a nutritionist on staff and needs to have a clinical nutrition service, because that's really the only way that you optimally learn about something is by doing it, right? By seeing it in action, by seeing how patients respond to various diets and what nutrition deficiencies and excesses look like, and why it's important to feed a complete and balanced diet, and is really what has led me to start Vital Vet, what I do, in helping to provide non-branded nutrition education that gives options in all the different categories for both pet guardians. But really, I'm super passionate about veterinary colleagues and kind of helping set up the fear-free of veterinary nutrition right within practices for that reason. And I think that it's a disservice to us as veterinarians that we don't get more nutrition inside of our curriculum.
Yeah, I agree.
I 100% agree.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and it's not that we don't know about nutrition, because I hate when clients say that too. Like, it's not know about nutrition. It's like, just because we're not agreeing with you and you're having some cognitive dissonance at the moment doesn't mean that we don't know about nutrition. Do we get two things are true, right? You know, that whole Dr. Becky thing. Two things are true. Should we get more in school? Yes, but does that mean we know nothing? No.
Right, exactly. So if a veterinary nutritionist is working with a company, is it safe to say that the company is probably producing good products? Or are they, for the most part? And do veterinary nutritionists typically work across all product lines for that company? Or are they only doing like, hey, we're only going to do puppy formula as nutritionists?
So that's the other thing. And it's so complicated. And you almost have to ask, like, because companies now, again, they're smart, right? They know what consumers are looking for. And they've now, our pet guardians are smart, and they're now asking that question. And that's why I think some of the companies are feeling pressured and have brought in a veterinary nutritionist. Like, I consult with a lot of different pet food companies. I don't recommend all the companies I consult with because they don't have to follow my advice. Right? Like, I can tell them what my recommendations are, but they don't have to do it for a lot of reasons. Might be cost or whatnot. But and then also, it used to be if they had one on staff. I mean, that's great, but at the same time, one of the companies that we talked about, they may have brought them in, but what are they using them for? What are they doing? Do they have a hand in their diet formulation? Do they have a hand in their marketing? I really drives me crazy when I see these companies that have a nutritionist and their marketing is horrific. It's like, why is your nutritionist not working with your marketing team to deliver accurate messaging?
Information, right?
And then also, if they have a nutritionist, but they're not involved in the formulation, and they're just parading the nutritionist around and saying they have one, or, that's doing a disservice to that nutritionist in their brain. And, I don't know. I'm not in these companies and I'm not working for them, so I can't say.
Right.
It's another tricky one, right? Where companies are getting smart.
They're getting smart. Yeah. Yep, absolutely. The other thing they like to do, speaking of being smart, they like to decrease the size of the bag but charge the same amount.
Bingo. And we really definitely hear about that.
We just got an email about that. I don't know which size or bag it was. I can't remember which therapeutic diet it was, but it was like, that will now be changing to 25 pounds instead of 32. And I'm like, and of course they don't tell you like, but the cost will stay the same.
Yeah.
It's like, I know the cost is staying the same.
Yeah.
So
the cost is staying the same.
I mean, the cost for everything's going up, but nothing new, but.
Which makes it harder to get a client on board and to go for that diet, because they're looking at the dollar. And
yeah, but you know what? I think like in our area, we're really fortunate because we have really great clients. They have, expendable income. I think they do have a vested interest in trying to feed like the best food. But I think sometimes they feed something thinking they're feeding the best food, spending a lot of money when they could actually spend less and get a better food.
Exactly.
Do you think that's true? Like that actually could happen? Like that's something that could, yeah.
All the time. Yeah. All the time. People think that, I'm feeding, wild boar and organic acai berries and, the wild boar is like, free range but then the diet's not balanced, right? So they're spending God knows how much on the ingredients, but the diet's not actually balanced. That's going into the dog. And then you have secondary nutritional hyperparathyroidism and all their bones are breaking when they spent, tens and thousands of dollars on their dog food. Now they got to spend tens and thousands of dollars for fixing the dog. Yeah. So in that case, pick a brand. Anything balanced would be better than that. Absolutely, that's true.
Okay, so I got to ask then.
Okay, go.
The raw diet. I just want to dig into that category because I've heard just kind of like the grain free. It has its place, but then I'm like, how does it have its place? How do you balance it? What situations do you recommend it? I don't know. I just don't want to not talk about raw diet.
Talk about it. It's so loaded, right? And also, did y'all know there's a course that's RACE approved that teaches either veterinarians or owners, or this is where this like canine certified nutritionist is coming from. They've patented that, not patented it, but trademark protected it. And it's putting out these nutritionists that will make raw homemade dog food, balance it it's not balanced, but they'll try to balance it for owners. So this is, I'm seeing coming out more, or something to be aware of too, is like if they say, it's a nutritionist, well, veterinarian or like a dog trainer who went through weekend certification with this company who tells you your dog is a wolf and gives you a raw food diet with animal parts, like literally hair included animal parts.
Yeah, chicken necks.
Yeah.
I see. And feet, rabbit
Don't
feet.
forget the feet. The chicken feet.
Chicken feet. Yeah.
So that's out there now. And for me with raw food, it's more about, I just tell them what we know and what we don't know. Like I pretty much stick to the facts because usually these people are very emotionally charged about it. And that's kind of usually the way I advise on talking about nutrition in general, is approach it the same way you'd approach politics or religion when you're talking about it with that client, that kind of delicacy intact. And because some of these people, it is, the reason why behind it. Again, find out why. And I think Dr. Emily, I heard you say that about, was it raw or something? But I was like, that's brilliant. That's exactly it. Is, they feed raw because they were feeding, whatever brand and their dog got cancer and they now feel responsible. So there's guilt behind there. So that motivating factor is guilt. They feel like they gave their dog cancer. And if they only fed their dog something raw because of what these ridiculous people, on social media are telling them, that their dog would have lived forever and never gotten cancer. So finding out the why behind what they're doing, again, that's almost always my first question is, I'm so glad you're interested in this. Tell me a little bit more about why you're interested. What got you started? What got you interested in this? Don't let them talk forever, but keep it relatively short and just see what they have to say. Sometimes they don't even really want to be doing it. They're just doing it because, for whatever reason, fear or whatnot. And then I talk about risk and the risk factors involved. And everyone's like, the diehard raw people will roll their eyes and be like, dogs don't get salmonella. And it's like, well, false, fake news. Dogs and cats absolutely do get salmonella and they die from salmonella. Is it common? No. But in my mind, when we have really great options or companies that do kill steps that are effective and that have, testing to make sure that the product is safe from the time it is manufactured to the time it enters the pet, then, why would we feed something with even a small risk involved? Because a lot of these patients that, I've had that have died from sepsis, from eating raw foods, they weren't necessarily even immunocompromised or unhealthy. A German Shepherd patient who I didn't treat the patient directly, but I got involved after the client, consulted with me after the dog died to find out what to do with the other dog in the house. And because, they're talking about a state of guilt and cognitive dissonance. Everything they thought was true is now not true, and it killed their dog. And wow, what do they do? So find out, what their risk tolerance is too. Some people jump out of planes and ride motorcycles and they're fine with assuming, a risk, where others are like, oh, heck no, if I could just cook it or, or something else, or a company I can, feed that, has a kill step and, really ensures that the product is safe from step A all the way to step G or H, then I'm going to do that. So and then I kind of put it back on the owner. And when I have a discharge for that owner, I'll put it in there. We discussed, some of the risks associated with feeding raw, and you're comfortable assuming those risks. And not in a condescending way. I don't ever mean it to be, I told you, so, that kind of a thing. Right. But it's more just also for a liability standpoint, that if anything did happen, it was documented, that it was discussed, that, just same way you do with the surgery or anything. Everything that we do has a risk involved with it. And that's why sometimes, some of my colleagues get really bent out of shape about it. I'm like, guys, everything we do has a has a risk associated with it. Because I have some colleagues who absolutely just won't. If a patient says that they're going to feed raw, or a client says they're going to feed raw, they're like, oh no, we can't talk to you. Bye. Click, hang up the phone or close the door or walk out of the room. And you're like, oh no. So then what's going to happen?
Right.
So
how's that helpful?
The client's going to go to chat site and get the diet from there. So to me, that goes against the do no harm oath, and we at least got to step in and try to help them. If we can balance it, if we can help educate them on safe food handling, at minimum, if we've done those two things, I think we've helped that dog or cat so, and the people in the house too, so much. Yeah. Rather than just being like, like can't talk to you, liability, salmonella, E. coli, listeria, shigella, all the nasties.
Oh gosh, the list goes on. Yeah,
it does.
Yeah.
There was a company, I feel like, is it called Beef, that does raw food? BEF or
Bef?
Well, Boof. It was, I can't remember, but I thought that I think that it
sounds
shipped
familiar.
to, like, it was raw food that shipped to clients or whatever.
Oh.
Are there any companies like that you're aware of that do raw food diets that then mail, like, or ship to owners?
Lots.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, lots. And it's so sketchy because, like, they don't have, they should have a little, when you get a test kit from IDEXX or a lab company, or even when you order probiotic, like, it'll often come with a strip that will tell you if the package was exposed to high temperatures, and it's just simple. And it's like, and it's right on there. If this dot is blue, do not, like, throw this box away and contact us and we'll send you more. Like, that's what these should be coming with, and they don't. There's really only one company that I know of that's raw that does the quality control and testing, and they're not only safety certified, but you can go on and get, like, a quality certification too, and they've spent the money to do both. It's Instinct. So they're an over-the-counter company. Yeah. Yep. They're the company that is technically WSAVA compliant. A lot of the raw food companies, they are doing, quote, a kill step. Like, they'll do HPP or high pressure pasteurization, but they'll only do it, like, on their poultry line of food. They don't do the beef. And it's like, hello, beef got bacteria too. Or they don't do any sort of validation testing. So they're like, yeah, we have a kill step. Yeah, we do HPP. It's great. But they don't actually validate it to make sure that they're actually getting a log reduction in whatever pathogen they're looking into. So great, you do HPV, but are you doing enough of it long enough? What's your protocol? Is it validated? Yeah. So it's also so hard. So it's kind of why I recommend just find a company or two in a category, and then if the client wants to go outside and beyond that, either buyer beware, or hey, go talk to a nutritionist and have a longer conversation about this, and they can help you either find some more companies or at the end of the day, I would tell clients too, like, I can't love your animal more than you do. And it's at the end of the day, your animal, and you have responsibility for its welfare and well-being. And if this is something you really feel strongly about, there's nothing that I'm going to say or do that can convince you otherwise. And so, you need to do what feels right for you, regardless of what I'm telling you. But hopefully they do listen. But
or they go home and they're like, I didn't realize all that. Like, did you know that? No, I didn't know that. And then they're like, okay, never mind. Let's not do that. Which has happened. I've done that before. And then they, because I think it's like, you kind of just plant that seed.
Yeah.
And then they go home, they think about it, and they're like, yeah, that wasn't, like, she wasn't hard selling me against, like, she wasn't making me feel bad for feeding raw, because I think you're not going to get anywhere. Like, they're just going to put up a wall if you make them feel bad for feeding raw. So then it's like, okay, well, here are the things to think about. And then they go home and then they think about it and they're like, okay, yeah, maybe you're right. I don't want to do all of this. Or I don't want to worry about all of this.
I'm always like, ultimately it's your pet, but it's my job to educate you. So here
Right.
you go.
Yeah.
Here's
Yeah.
some handouts.
Right.
And even
Yeah.
like with the die-hard, people, the raw feeders, I'll say, I know you've heard this before. I know that you're going to tempted to just shut down and not listen to me. I do have to discuss this with you. So, and it's going to go in your discharges. So I'm not condescending you. I'm not trying to, beat the dead horse here in my discharges, but I have to put it in there. And if you want to ignore the part about the cooking your meats and do it anyway, then go ahead. But I also talk people who want to do their own raw food diets about how their animal sources are processed and like the butchering practices, and are they butchering their chickens at home versus are they getting them at the supermarket? Because a lot of people don't know that 30% of the supermarket poultry, up to 30%, is allowed to be contaminated with salmonella because the FDA thinks we're going to be, they hope we're going to be cooking it.
Right.
So and often when you say that to a client, they're like,
oh,
wait, up to
that's
30%
actually a really good fact.
salmonella?
Yeah.
No, that's a great one to be able to use.
That's a lot of chicken.
Oftentimes they'll just be
I know
like,
30% doesn't sound like a lot, but
yeah, because I feel like
chicken.
I feel like most people that feed raw diets, or what I've seen in my experience and whatnot, is they just throw a couple slabs of raw meat and like a foot and then like a few supplements, and they're like, bon appetit. People are uneducated about raw diets, I feel like, but like they're not bad, but if you're going to feed them, then you need to feed them right.
Exactly. Yeah. And if they're butchering their own chickens at home and they're making sure that those insides come out intact, because that's where the contamination usually comes from. It's from butchering practices. Then they have and that's even a lower risk. Then their risk of, contracting foodborne illness is even lower if the butchering was done appropriately.
Yeah. That's so interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Okay. So tell me the lowdown on AFCO testing. Like, what is it? Why do companies do it? Does it mean anything really at the end of the day? Like that one food has it, one food doesn't. Like, give me the lowdown.
Right. And AFCO is totally one of those two things are true subjects where is it enough? Probably not. No. But it's what we have. Is it better than nothing? Heck yeah. Right. So it's somewhere in between. Is it the best of the best? Does an AFCO food test tell you everything that you need to know? No, because it's short. It's only a matter of a few days. And then you have to make sure that the animal has met certain criteria, that they haven't lost any weight is one. And then there are certain blood parameters they look at, not all of them. It's like total protein levels and a few others, to make sure that haven't dropped during the duration of the feeding trial. And that's it. That's your AFCO feeding trial. So will it tell you if the diet is going to like kill the animal? Yeah. In a short period of time. Right. Yeah, it will. If they're going to be like losing more than, 15% of their body weight in the like short, couple, weeks of the trial. Yeah, it'll tell you that. But, will it tell you the quality of the diet, or is that, diet going to be suitable to feed long term to the animal? No. But then hopefully a combination of a well-formulated diet that goes through a feeding trial. I would actually love to see companies layer on, digestibility testing is one that would be really great, and then have digestibility testing on, certainly the macronutrients and then maybe a couple of the micros. And then, bioavailability testing is really big ask, and it's not always possible because we can't necessarily always just go in and measure like serum levels. It's not like we're going to go in and take a liver out and grind up a liver and look for, iron and copper and a lot of our minerals. But, some enhanced testing, I think, would be a much better gold standard than just an AFCO test. But again, it's better than nothing, especially now that all these kind of newer, novel, ingredients are coming into light here. Like I saw, what are people advocating for now is hair. Feeding hair is a source of manganese and fiber. And I'm like, well, it does one thing or the other. I can't do both. If you're feeding something and give you high amounts of fiber, it means it's probably going to bind up the other nutrients in there. And so you can't expect it to, quote, act like a bottle brush in the intestines, and also provide a viable source of digestible and bioavailable manganese.
What? People are just giving animals clumps of hair?
No, I think it's
body parts. Body parts. Like, they're like, here, have like a cow ear. And that's a great source of manganese.
Let me shave off a nice piece of skin with some.
That's what I've seen on like social media, like people that feed whatever, they just throw the piece of animal into their dog's bowl.
Yeah, and this
like
course,
the rabbit ears or a rabbit foot or a whole baby rabbit
about?
This is a course. It's a race-approved course that teaches this.
Oh, the canine, the one she said that's coming out with the canine.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I've seen that
They've
a
already
lot.
blocked me on social media, so I can't see them
Well, let's see if
anymore,
we can
but-
say something and get blocked. Okay.
I've been blocked.
Wait, before I forget this other question. All state. Okay, I got two questions. One, is it fair to say if it doesn't have AFCO testing, pass?
Not necessarily. Because,
Okay,
you know,
damn it, I'm
AFCO,
trying to find
I
some
know.
like
easy. Like, we need black or white.
I know.
It's
And
not
I'm
like
probably
that.
the wrong nutritionist to talk to in that case because I'm
No,
such
no,
a gray
I'm just
nutritionist. Like, really not.
Okay.
I have
That's
colleagues who
But
are
that's
gray.
really what it is.
Yes.
Everything's
Yeah.
gray.
Yeah.
There's a
So-
lot that we don't know about nutrition, right? We don't have
Yeah.
the same level of, meta-analyses type research studies that human nutrition does. You know, we just don't have that. And then a lot of our studies are funded by pet food companies. That's another two things are true, right? Where
Right.
it's not that those studies aren't high quality and that shouldn't be listened to, or, they aren't overly influenced by a pet food company. But do you also think a pet food company is going to publish something that makes them look bad?
Right.
No.
No. Yeah.
So it is one of those hard gray areas. And no, AFCO tests are expensive. And so some companies just simply can't afford them. Or, if when I'm advising a smaller company, I'd almost rather see them, they have their AFCO statement, their AFCO formulated statement, but then do some digestibility studies to see what's actually happening versus what, necessarily an AFCO testing will tell you. They should do it eventually. They should, once they hit like a certain threshold, a certain size, especially if they're using, weird ingredients, they should absolutely do AFCO testing once they reach a certain size. But there are certainly some smaller companies who I would recommend that haven't done AFCO testing yet, but I still think make a good product. So, it's so, in an ideal world, yeah, but in the real world,
Got it.
no,
In the real
necessarily.
world.
Because then it will exclude a lot of smaller companies that are doing a really good job, but just don't quite have the size yet to
Okay. Fair
do that.
enough. Okay.
Makes
I won't
sense.
exclude them yet. Okay. What about like diets that are all stages?
That's a great question.
Yeah, that's a wonderful question.
Okay.
I don't love those.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't love those.
I think I feed my own dog one. All right, great. That's
But
good. Check
At the
box.
same time, I think, am I feeding my dog one right now? I might be feeding my dog right now too. It depends, right? Like the reason why I don't love them like across the board is because the way those diets are formulated is they take the toughest patient to formulate for, in this case would be a puppy, and they formulate for the puppy. So if it's got the nutrient levels for the puppy, then it's good for the adult. So, when you have like a Labrador that comes from a family of, copper hepatopathy, copper source hepatopathy, do you want them to be consuming the level of copper, in adulthood that you would want them on in growth? Probably not. Copper's another hot topic right now, but I would probably move like a lab that comes from or like a Bedlington Terrier. I probably wouldn't have one on all life stages diet for that exact reason. Or an obese patient, because the fat levels in that diet are going to be really high. And then when we talk about like the giant breed dogs, there's no really good diets for giant breed dogs that are all life stages. Those need to be more life stage appropriate. But other than that, they're not bad. And I get why companies do it. It's because it's really hard and expensive to offer, a wide variety of diets and all the different flavors and all the different life stages and be able to make enough profit to be sustainable. Because I think one thing that people don't realize is that these companies are usually operating within relatively narrow profit margins. It's not like clothing, where, that's like a 50-60% markup versus, or even more so than what pet food is. Pet food, you're like 30%. So you're really not making that much money off of pet food as you would, like a garment or a good, like a tech good, a computer or a cell phone.
Yeah.
So I guess in that, by describing that, it's safe. Like if a new puppy owner comes in and says, I started it on all life stages, then it's probably going to be okay for the puppy at least. Because usually I'm like, well, that makes me nervous because the puppy is so, it's detrimental that they get the right thing. So it's okay that they're doing it for the puppy, but maybe not later on. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
As long as it's, small, medium puppy,
Sure.
then absolutely fine. But then when you get like the obese adult that's on an all life stages, that's maybe when you want to say, hey, or, one that you're like, do you need to be taking in the minerals or vitamins at this level? And sometimes it's fine and it is safe, and an otherwise healthy animal is going to be totally fine doing that. It's just, the one-offs that.
Okay.
Good to know. Yeah. When you have a big company like Purina that has everything from like puppy chow all the way up to like maybe some of their aging diet, like over the counter aging diets or brain, whatever. I can't remember the name of the, and then they have like
Minds.
Purina 30/20. Like they have all these different levels of formulas.
Yeah.
Is there, when they formulate those, are they really formulating them? Like puppy chow is so much cheaper, right? Than even Pedigree. Well, not Pedigree. That's not a Purina line, but like,
Purina One or something. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Like they have different categories.
Yeah, like they have puppy chow,
brand.
Purina One, Pro Plan, like, and they kind of tier them up over the counter. Is there a quality difference between something like puppy chow and something like Pro Plan?
So that's a great question. And that's kind of goes along with, I wish I had like a whiteboard behind me to draw out and start drawing for you. Is the way I think about nutrition is on, the oxygen saturation curve that's flat on the top. That's how I think about nutrition. And it sounds kind of complicated, but hopefully, I talked to pet guardians about this and hopefully give some peace of mind, and that we really don't know where any of the different diet types or brands or even, like fresh versus kibble lays on that curve of quality. So if you're looking at like optimal health and vitality on like your X and Y axis, and then along your curve is where your diets lie, we don't really know where those diets are at. And so once you reach the threshold of it being like complete, balanced, and safe, and maybe some like digestibility studies and some like extra quality control on top of that, you're starting to reach the flat top of the curve, right? Like if you give more oxygen, you're not going to get your SpO2 levels any higher. So with certain patients, if you give them dog chow, maybe that's all they need. Maybe that gets them to the top of that, that top of that curve, especially if it's like a robust dog that has, really good genetics and lives in a great environment and has everything else it needs. And it gets great veterinary care. Is, feeding, going from like dog chow to Pro Plan, really gonna make a difference.
Right.
Maybe not in lifespan, but maybe in, joint disease. Maybe they're going to get joint disease a little bit later because it's a little bit more nutraceuticals. And, those diets have been so elegantly formulated in like the Bright Minds and the MCT oils in there and helping their brain function better. So when you have an older dog that's on that, is their cognitive function going to be better than somebody on, just dog chow? Yeah, probably. But is that dog chow dog going to be fine on that dog too? Yeah. And I guess this is where I did a lot of volunteering for Native American, Native peoples service type trips. And I saw these people who loved their animals so much. And, they certainly weren't getting the level of nutrition or even veterinary care. Sometimes we were the first, vet care of these animals had ever gotten. They'd never gotten heartworm, they'd never gotten tick treatment, they'd never gotten vaccines, never been spayed or neutered. And I saw these animals, they could certainly stand for the vet care that they received. They needed it, but it just showed me a lot. And it also, I went to vet school in Wisconsin, and there's a lot of farm animals, and seeing these farm animals that were, very well loved, but maybe not to the same gold standard level of care that we, had been taught in vet school to be administering. And it just showed me that love and loving these animals takes them a whole lot of the way. And if you can get them their basic needs met and like basic veterinary care met, it really took them pretty far. And so that's again where we get to that oxygen saturation curve is like, do we need to be giving them, fresh organic, wild boar and acai berries and balanced and, eliminating all the, toxins in the environment and letting them sleep on, these fuzzy things. Is it really going to make them live longer or have a better quality of life? Maybe, sure. Yeah. Okay. But how much so, right? Like,
right,
you get in the basic vaccines, you get in their preventative, you feed them a balanced diet. Like, do you have to do more than that?
Yeah. Right. I mean, like, that's why I never switch somebody. If they're like, I'm on Pedigree and the dog's fine. The dog looks good. It's not overweight. It's not having any health issues. Sure. Fine. You're on Pedigree, whatever. Your dog's doing well on it. You know, like, so I guess, that makes me feel better that I've never, like said, okay, you're not, like you should eat something better or you should try and whatever. I mean, I guess using nutrition more to support and solve a problem, potentially. I don't know.
I think I get more nervous of my ignorance of like the bad companies, right? Like I think I just need to do better at looking into, now that we've learned all this new stuff, of calling the company. Well, at what time, right?
Have your clients call.
I guess
Yeah.
figuring out
Your
Yeah,
clients,
your clients
yeah.
call, yeah.
but figuring out when we were doing the thumb game, like which ones aren't maybe the best, and you start that conversation rather than have them bring it up to us,
Mhm.
where they're like, is this a good food? I get that question all the time, and I'm like, oh, usually it's the common one, and I'm like, yeah, that's pretty good. But then there's the ones I've never heard of, or ones I just honestly don't know, that I'm like, well, I'm not familiar with it, but I like these. So I don't know. I think it's more of there's so many out there.
Yeah.
There's so many options now.
And I also think that's a conversation that's why I started what I do. Is I don't know that that's the best use of your time to be sitting there and having like a 20, 30 minute conversation with that animal. Like, you got to be moving on. You got to be going to surgery. Like, you're going to be literally saving lives and, treating and, doing the things that we were taught in veterinary school to do that. But what would be great is to tag in an assistant or a technician to come in and kind of finish that nutrition conversation, have a nutrition advocate at your practice you can go tag, you're it, and then they come in and help them evaluate the quality of the food or the company and that. So then all you need to do is have a few, brands or foods in your back pocket that you're like, yeah, these are my favorites. These are what I like and why. If they were interested in anything beyond that, introduce our nutrition advocate, and then they can go in and have that.
Right.
So, I also don't like, whenever I talk to any of my colleagues, like, I don't want anyone to ever feel like shamed or guilty or be like, oh my gosh, I'm not having enough nutrition conversations with my clients. Like, you don't have time for that. And I don't know that that's a good use of your time either.
Sure. Would you like to come work in Indiana?
We have a job lined up for you.
Exactly.
You can put me at your clinic.
What did you
Like, channel me through one of your techs or assistants.
There you go. Exactly.
I love it.
So we haven't given cats very much love here. So let's give some cats.
Well, can I ask one question really quick?
Yes,
Can I
go
just
for it.
backtrack a smidge?
Yes.
So this necessarily isn't related to completely nutrition, but I thought it was very interesting, your point earlier when so we were talking about grain-free diets. So I was just curious if this applied to all diets, which I'm assuming it does, but you mentioned when there's an obese patient and you cut back their food you say, okay, you're feeding a cup, feed half a cup twice a day now instead of 1 cup twice a day. You said when you cut back, then the pet is losing those nutritional needs that the food has and whatnot. Is that true in all diets? And then if so, like if you're talking to a client about this issue and their dog's overweight, they've cut out all treats, they've increased exercise, they've done all this, instead of decreasing the food, do you just recommend a change to a different diet altogether, like a metabolic diet? Or I was just curious about that because that was very interesting to me.
Yeah, absolutely. So anything over the counter. So the kind of rule of thumb, and it's not a black or white rule. The rule of thumb generally is that if your patient is overweight and their body condition score is greater than a 6 out of 9, so they're more than just a little chubby, they're getting into the obese or morbidly obese range, that is the point where they need to be switched from a over the counter diet to a therapeutic weight loss diet. Or else we run the risk of causing a significant enough nutrient deficiency that could be problematic for them long term.
Interesting. Okay, cool. Thank you for that information. That's very helpful
too.
Yeah, that
so
is
if they're
helpful.
just, if they're a little overweight, they're a 6 and you want to get them down to a 5 or a 4, if they have mobility problems, then you're probably okay to cut back or use an over-the-counter diet or like a light over-the-counter diet or a less calorically dense over-the-counter diet. But then if they're over a 6, then that's when you start reaching. And again, also true is your question too, if they're having trouble losing weight, is you could try just switching to a different over-the-counter food, or that's also when it'd be great to like tag in your nutrition advocate or you become a nutrition advocate yourself and really there's a lot behind it, a lot of psychology, and you can really get to the root of why this dog or cat isn't losing weight and really help them lose weight. But it does take time and effort and something that I think we need to charge clients for as a service without it being a scam.
Okay. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Charge appropriately for our time is not a scam.
It's not a scam. That's right. Exactly. Oh my gosh. Okay, so cats.
Kitty cats.
Talk about cats.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you think that cats, is it true? Like I was taught that cats, as they get older, need more protein in order to maintain muscle mass or, maintain their muscle mass. Is that true?
That is true. Yeah,
and on
those-
average, do they need like 5 grams per kilogram per day of protein to do that?
yeah, I forget what the exact number is, but it is absolutely true that their protein
Okay.
requirement will go up as they age. They also have other changes, and this is where Purina has done some really wonderful studies on this. And you know, why I also don't like it when people are like, and just because it's a study that came out by a pet food company doesn't mean it's right. Like, no, it's wonderful information. I'm so glad that we have it. Thank you for doing this study, Purina, that showed us that these older cats not only have a higher protein requirement, but also digestibility decreases with age, and that their ability to absorb and utilize nutrients declines with age. And we have also all kinds of other factors like olfaction changes and their taste, actually the perception of their taste changes. And so there's all these factors that go into specifically an aging cat, and why we see so much either sarcopenia or cachexia, depending if there's underlying disease present with these aging animals, and why a diet that is been formulated for a senior animal would be appropriate in a cat, and actually should be even higher in protein, but maybe a little lower in phosphorus, so that, you know, when there's underlying
Kidneys,
renal disease that we just haven't been able to detect yet because of our testing capabilities right now. That we're not overdoing the phosphorus and exacerbating unknown kidney disease.
So canned food as they get older, do you think?
It again, I know everybody hates talking to me because I say it depends. Like that's it's really like that.
Yeah.
Everything is it depends. Some of the canned foods have, you know, higher protein levels, some of them don't. Royal Canin, I think, has really amazing over-the-counter senior cat diets that are nice and high in protein. I'm a protein pusher too, and this is again where you line up 6 different nutritionists. They'd have 6 different preferences, and you know, Hills very much formulates on the philosophy that as the animal ages, they usually tend to lower protein levels, so that also goes with lower phosphorus levels. But Purina formulates to higher protein levels, but also higher phosphorus levels. And Royal Canin does, in the senior diets at least, higher protein, a little bit lower phosphorus. And they're all kind of, I think, coming along that way as we get more data and evidence to show that that's the way to do it. But I do really like Royal Canin like stage diets for that reason for cats.
What do you think about like Wellness Core all meat diets and Merrick like all meat diets for cats? Do you think those are well formulated?
Yeah.
Do you have any opinion on those?
Yep. Actually, yeah, I do. So Merrick is now actually owned by Nestle. And so they came in, and what's kind of cool about what they did is they actually used to sit on Merrick's advisory panel. And they, when Purina came in, they came in and brought in all of their quality control and safety and testing and knowledge into that company. But didn't change the company, didn't change their Texas-based company, didn't really change any of the mission of the company or the core values or how the food was made in a way that would change, you know, the food difference as an owner perspective, like feeding Merrick,
the relationship with the owner.
Yeah. So they did a really nice job kind of going in and doing all the good things that you would hope would happen when like a merger or acquisition occurs without the, you know, lessening, you know, the quality of food to buy a cheaper, you know, ingredient or whatnot. And so, yeah, Merrick as a company, I feel very comfortable with feeding. And Wellness is owned by somebody now. I don't remember who off the top of my head, but I have a whole like who's who at the zoo handout that shows who's owned by what. And often, you know, I think it's a good thing that Nestle owns Merrick, but not all pet guardians would feel that way. And so that's not necessarily something that I'll announce to them. And that, you know, if I have a client who is ingredient centric and wants, you know, a more affordable ingredient centric food, but is on, you know, some other company that I wouldn't necessarily feel comfortable recommending, I'll recommend like a Merrick and say, how about Merrick? And they'll be like, oh, great. But I won't be like, and they're owned by, you know, Nestle. So they'd be like, I don't need that now. Like, come on.
It's not a selling point.
Yeah, right. So you just kind of be careful. It's not like, you know, you're not withholding information, but it's just you kind of only give information as it's asked. Sometimes it's the best way to go.
Okay, so what about the fat indoor lazy cat? Is it going to be probably just best go straight to the prescription instead of messing with going like if they're on kibble, free feed. we try to
Yeah.
get them on canned food. Is it just go to the prescription and be done?
It is, because it's so
Okay.
hard to get these indoor cats to lose weight that don't have a high activity level. And you can tell clients like, yeah, get a laser pointer or get some more pointer, or, get more toys and interact with them more, make them work with their food, put them all in food dispensing toys, and, put the litter box on one level and the food on the other, to do all the things we've been taught, like we've been told these ad nauseum. And thank you, Tony Buffington from the Ohio State, for teaching us all this. But pet owners, if they can't do it, or if they don't have the space, right? Like, I don't know, I have a very small house. So like, it doesn't matter if I put my litter box on one and on the other, like my cat's got to take 5 more steps to make that happen. So putting them right on that therapeutic diet is really going to set them up for success at go. And there's always, the case of the owner that can't afford it, right? Like some clients just really, truly can't afford it. And so in that case, you just do the best you can with what you have and keep an eye on them. And but yeah, if they can, and that's an option, going right to that therapeutic diet is usually the best course of action.
Pray for no diabetes.
That's right. Exactly. Or fatty liver when they lose weight. So with prescription, like obesity foods, how you bring up obesity, like, are there differences between them, or are they all the same but slightly different?
Vastly different.
They're vastly different. So it does make sense, because like with my English lab Pickles, I went through like 4 diets to get her to lose weight. And I finally, she lost weight and is maintained her weight on OM, on Purina OM. But I couldn't get her to lose weight on Hill's Metabolic. Couldn't get her to lose weight on, like the Royal Canin, low fat.
Yeah.
I couldn't get her to lose weight on anything. And then I was like, all right, OM, let's try it. I thought for sure it wasn't going to work.
Sure.
So there are vast differences why one dog might lose on something and another dog might not.
And then there's also like what I call the herbs and spices factor, which I'm integrative and I say that with love, is that a lot of these companies use like nutraceuticals. Like they'll use L-carnitine to help shuttle fatty acids across the mitochondrial membrane, which shouldn't, in theory, it hasn't been proven. That's why I have to be really careful when I speak to other nutritionists a little bit. It hasn't been proven yet. I'm like, okay, but it does correspond with the mechanism of action of what we know happens with, what L-carnitine does in the mitochondrial level. And so they'll use evidence-based nutraceuticals in the diet, or lipoic acid, or omega-3 fatty acids and antioxidants, because lipolysis is a oxidative process, and so adding the antioxidants can really help to just support the patient and decrease the oxidative load of losing fat and lysing that fat in the body. And so and each company has their own secret sauce, special sauce of how they formulate and why, not only what macronutrient profile they use, but also micronutrient and nutraceuticals and fiber and all that. So it is very much worth switching foods, because it isn't. Some of my colleagues will say it's just calories. You just got to decrease the calories. And I do disagree with that, because I have had some patients where I swear, and I believe the owner, that the calories are this, like they are being true to that diet plan, and they're just not budging. And then you switch foods. That's where sometimes I switch into a fresh food, and you just
boom.
I don't know if you're just kicking the metabolism in a different way. That's why it works. I don't know. I don't have an explanation for that, but it
fascinating
sometimes works.
Mm-hmm.
It makes me think of like the CD. We have some dogs that relapse and get stones, urinary bladder stones, on one, I shouldn't say CD, on one of the urinary diets, and then we switch and they do better.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that's exactly why. If you look at even the nutrients of concern in the diets, or whether it's the, magnesium or the phosphorus or, urate levels, the purine levels in the diet for urate stones, they're different. They pick different numbers, just the way they formulate. And so it's absolutely worthwhile with stone cases, if you have one that's kind of reformed stones on one, and really educating your pet guardian that sometimes they just form them no matter what. And first step is like, are they accidentally slipping in more calories than we think that they are, and unbalancing that prescription diet is often what's happening, but sometimes not. And then just switching the type of prescription diet, they're fine. Like I would get referred cases like that all the time. They had reformed a stone on whatever brand. I switched them and they were fine. For the rest of their life. Or sometimes I'm just doing a homemade diet will help too. We'll do a homemade, and really, then you can really get specific on the exact levels that you think are ideal for those nutrients of concern, and really custom tailor it for that patient. And they do really, really well.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
That's very cool.
Wow.
I have a question. So the big 3, Royal Canin, Hill Science Diet, Purina, are those your go-to personally? That when clients are like, what are your brands you recommend? Like, do you for sure go to those? Because like
Yes.
that's what we've been taught. But I was just curious if.
Yeah. And again, I also first ask the client the question first, like what's important to you? What are your preferences and lifestyle like? Because, you know, I would rope in, you know, some other companies in there that I think are doing a really good job, that aren't, it's hard, right? Because those companies are so big and so well funded, that it's hard to say to a smaller company, do exactly everything that they do, like fund the studies and do all the research, and they just can't. And a lot of them are, you know, it's because they're backed by, you know, they're not just Hills Purina or Canaan. They're all owned by even larger companies than that. And that's why they can afford to do the things that they can do. So absolutely, yes. Those are the big three. They're wonderful. I will never vilify them. And I get shunned by a lot of my holistic colleagues because I will not renounce their evils. They're always a good go-to, but they're not my only ones either.
Okay.
Sure. Yeah.
Well, I think one of our main questions too is like just good resources that we can direct our clients to, other than, I guess, aside from calling the companies. It sounds like that's probably the best resource. But then I know consultation work, right? You do a lot of consultation work, and do you do like video call or phone calls too, or does it have to be in person?
Yeah. So I do telehealth is predominantly what I do. And I'm actually starting to do telehealth through my technicians because I'm passionate about making nutrition more accessible and more affordable to pet guardians. And so, you know, when I was in clinical practice in person, I had a up to 5-month wait list at one point. And, you know, patients were literally sometimes dying before they could even get in to see me. And I would like go to bed at night and not sleep because I had so much guilt over that, and almost burn myself out because I was trying to like squeeze in more and more cases. So I offer consults through my technician. So they're way more affordable than speaking directly to a nutritionist, and you can get in faster. And also I'm starting to do, pet owner courses. So I actually just, you know, launched my first, master course, yesterday, where we talk through the pros and cons of all the different feeding options. And so that's a nice way for them to get some information. It's not specific, you know, for their pet, but it is a way that they can get accurate information that will help them drown out the noise on social media from the faux-fluencers and the fear mongers and what they're saying. And then they can I always say, you make your decisions based on information, not fear. I can't make the decision for you, but hopefully they're going to be making their decision on information, not fear, accurate information.
Yeah, for sure.
It's awesome.
Well, you know, we won't keep you forever because we could talk about this for hours.
This is amazing.
We'll come back.
Okay.
Cool.
Part 2.
Before we leave, though, I do have to ask you a question. They all laughed because I put this on my list of questions.
Oh my gosh.
Because we're talking about nutrition and food, guys, that's why I put it on
This is on every interview as well for the clinic.
Okay. If you were an item in a pantry, what would you be?
Oh. I think I'd be like a sweet and spicy sauce.
Okay.
Do you have reasoning behind that?
Yeah. Because, you know, overall, I'm a kind person. I used to say I was nice, but I'm not a nice person. I don't think any of us should be striving for being nice anymore. I think kindness is much better for everyone involved. But then also I can kind of turn up the heat and get spicy when I have to be. And I think that's hard as a woman, especially, you know, now in society, it's the best time ever because it is finally being accepted. When, you know, even I think 10 years ago, it wasn't. And so being able to be assertive and speak in a certain way, you know, it's interesting is that I will get a whole lot of clap back when I sometimes speak, and it's because I'll speak with confidence, and, you know, I'll have a male colleague standing next to me that'll say, could say the exact same thing that wouldn't get the same, oh, well, he's just being condescending or just because I'm a woman, the way I said it, I didn't say, oh, well, you know, you might want to consider thinking about, you know, and try to be all nice, you know, like kind of, you know, hesitant about it. It's like, no, just state the facts. And, but also I think I'm shelf stable. Like, you know, you can put me through some stuff and I'll still hang in there. And
you can go through a tornado and just still be there.
Right? And
your
still
bottle
be there.
of sweet and spicy stays. Like you don't have to worry about it getting messed up.
Yeah.
There
And I
you
put
go.
on with
I like
others.
it.
So, you know, you can put me on, you know, a variety of different foods and I'll kind of blend right in there.
That's a
I
great
love
answer.
that answer.
That's an amazing answer. It's an amazing answer.
Yeah.
Okay, if our clients want to find you, they can find you at vitalvetnutrition.com, right?
That's right. Yep.
Okay. And,
And also-
check out your website, and there's different resources for veterinarians and for owners, correct?
There
Yeah, I
is.
really
That
like
is
the layout
correct.
of her website.
Okay.
What'd you say,
Thank you
Courtney?
very
It's a good
much.
layout. Her
It's a
website.
good layout. Courtney loves your website, she said.
Mhm.
Thank you. I'm about to update the pictures. I got a branding photo session done, so I'm about to update them so they're a little more
Ooh.
personal. It was
Fancy,
very
fancy.
uncomfortable for me being the center of attention like that.
Your
I'll get up and talk
Instagram's
about
also
nutrition or a
amazing.
topic or even sing a song, but having a camera in my face was a very uncomfortable experience for
Devin, what'd you say?
I said her Instagram's amazing.
And
All
your
the fun
Instagram,
little
Devin. Yes, we do love your
infographics.
Instagram.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yes,
thank you.
they're very
Yes,
catchy.
I put a lot of time and effort into
Yeah.
Instagram because I want to bring more accurate information to pet guardians. They really want, and veterinary professionals too, both. And we'll have a YouTube hopefully soon because I've found that most of what I put out there, it's too long for Instagram.
Yeah.
And I need 5 or 10 minutes, like it doesn't have to be hours, but just 5 or 10 minutes to explain a complex, nuanced nutrition topic and not a 1-minute reel.
Yeah.
So a lot of like the stories I put out there would be better put into YouTube. And then we're actually thinking about a podcast too. Probably going to have a podcast coming out a little bit later this summer called The Guaranteed Analysis. And it's actually
That's
a
cool.
That's awesome.
VTS nutritionist colleague of mine who I helped her get her VTS. And I love to empower our support staff as often as we possibly can. And so she asked me to be a co-host with her. And I said, if you drive it and you own it and it's yours and I am just your wingman, great, I'm in. Just show up and talk. So that's hopefully going to be coming out, later this summer to this fall too. So hopefully there'll be a website, a Instagram, and YouTube, and a podcast. And I think people are going to be so sick of hearing me and seeing me. But there'll be a lot of ways to find me.
That's awesome.
That's awesome.
All right. Any other questions you guys have?
You're good.
You're
Thank you
good?
so much for all the information. That was
Mhm.
amazing.
Yes. Thank you so much for being here.
Took some
Really
notes.
appreciate your time and your expertise.
And your expertise. Absolutely.
I'm
We
so
do
excited.
Really appreciate it.
Oh,
I
thank
have-
you.
yeah.
It's a pleasure to be here. I get
Yes.
lonely and I love interacting with colleagues. I'm very much extroverted and love interacting with colleagues whenever I can.
Yes.
Well, if you ever come to the Midwest, let us know.
Yes.
Yeah,
please.
you got to stop by for sure.
Will
Absolutely.
do.
All right. Thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of the Veterinary Roundtable. Remember, send in those questions and leave us a review if you've enjoyed this episode or a previous one. We'll see you next week for another episode of the Veterinary Roundtable.
Bye bye.
All right. Thank you so much, Dr. Conway.
Yes, thank
We
you.
appreciate your time.